If you think it's time to take a hammer to your bathroom scale and rip up the diet rulebook, well, welcome to Body Kindness. Hi, everyone. It's Rebecca Scritchfield, author of Body Kindness and host for this podcast. I'm a health at every size dietitian, a certified exercise physiologist, a former chronic dieter, and mom to 2 girls. Join me as I talk to guests about what it means to be good to ourselves and create a better life where well-being matters, not weight. Through these conversations, we'll reveal the challenging and surprising ways our culture keeps us searching for our worth and our appearance. So let's create a new view of health that's inclusive and built on compassion and respect for all bodies. Let's shake things up and let's change the game. Hey listeners, would you like to help advance research on body image healing? I'm co-investigator of a new study with Dr. Jennifer Webb, director of the Integrative Positive Psychology Research Lab in Mindfulness, Body Acceptance, Culture, and Health at UNC Charlotte. And we're looking for body kindness readers living in the US to participate in a survey. If you're a woman who's currently pregnant or with at least one child under 5, and you are reading or have recently read Body Kindness, we would love to hear from you. Visit bodykindnessbook.com/research to learn more. Those who complete the survey will be eligible to receive access to an exclusive web-based body kindness training with downloadable resources for pregnant and postpartum women developed by me. Please help us spread the word about the research study by sharing the link on social media. That's bodykindnessbook.com/research. And if you haven't yet read Body Kindness, there are a limited number of free ebook copies available. Visit bodykindnessbook.com/research. If you have any questions, please email me, Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com.
So if you hold anti-fat attitudes, it's also likely you're engaging in that sort of body shaming, self-disparaging, quote unquote, fat talk with your peers. And what we found is that what links those together is body shame. So, the relationship between holding those negative attitudes about individuals of size relate to fat talk because of your experiences of body shame.
That was Jennifer Webb. She's an associate professor, a clinical health psychologist, and director of the Mind Batch Lab at UNC Charlotte. She received a bachelor's degree in cognitive neuroscience from Harvard University, master's in psychology from the University of Southern California, and a PhD in psychology also from the University of Southern California. She teaches all different types of psychology classes at the undergraduate level, and she centered her doctoral level instruction on helping graduate students in the health psychology programs explore and consider the personal and professional benefits of evidence-based third-wave behavior therapies, such as acceptance and commitment therapy, which I love. You'll know I love it if you read Body Kindness and listen to some of the past shows where we talked about it, and also compassion-focused therapy as well. I'm really excited to share this conversation with you, and this episode kicks off a series I'm doing on women's health, and we are going to start with some research around body image and body image healing. So you'll hear Dr. Webb and I talk about body image flexibility and a body image acceptance measure that's out, also ways of practicing body gratitude, and so much more, including the exciting research work that we have going on with the Body Kindness collaboration with her research lab. And I hope that when you listen and hear us talk about it, that if you meet the criteria or you know someone who does, that you will consider helping to complete the survey yourself or spread the word. Hey, Jennifer, welcome to Body Kindness.
Hi. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for having me today.
Well, I am so excited to have you on the show today. And I, as someone who's very interested in body image, I've been reading your research for a number of years now. And I hope that for listeners of today's show, that if they don't already know you, that they will become fully interested in the type of work you do and will personally benefit from hearing our conversation today.
Wow, I'm very flattered. And I also really appreciate the opportunity to share more about our work. And again, hope that I can pay it forward.
Well, let's just start there then. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and the kind of work you do?
Sure. Well, I actually grew up in New York, Staten Island, New York,
Mm-hmm.
and I really had the privilege of living in different parts of the country, great cities, and pursuing my academic training. So for college, I got to taste Boston, Cambridge area. I also lived in Minneapolis for a little while. I was in Los Angeles at USC, receiving my doctoral training. And then in Durham, that sort of brought me to this side of the country again, but in the Southeast, where I completed my internship at Duke Medical Center, as well as my postdoc at Duke Integrative Medicine before coming to Charlotte. So I've had sort of this geographic journey, and with that has also been this really, for me, sort of transformational experience in terms of how I viewed myself as a researcher, as someone who wanted to make a difference, not only in terms of folks who are reading articles, but again, trying to make a broader contribution to women's well-being.
Can you share a little bit more about that? Like what's your focus area of research
Yes.
and specifics to the broader contribution that you'd like to make?
Oh, sure. So my training is in clinical health psychology. So in addition to sort of the yin of what can we do to help folks who are struggling with mental illness, we also are trying to sort of more holistically balance that out with better understanding how we can help people also live above zero.
Mm-hmm.
So, health psychology is a wonderful complement to clinical psychology. And specifically, our work has really focused on helping women across the lifespan. And particularly, our research is focused on the developmental transition of women in college. And we'll be talking more about the experiences of women during pregnancy and the postpartum, but being able to experience their bodies in a way that helps them to live life fully. So there's been a lot of emphasis, understandably so, on treating and paying attention and preventing negative body image.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes a whole bunch of sense. And we want to keep doing that. At the same time, sort of as the positive psychology movement was sort of taking hold over the last 10, 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
we've also realized, it's also so important to pay attention to what we appreciate about what our bodies are already doing and what they're giving and what their potential is. So a lot of the work that we do focuses on not only the negative side of body image, but also the positive side of how we experience our bodies and how that also affects, for example, how we relate to the process of eating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, this is a really good point because I think sometimes when people hear about like positivity or maybe they even hear about positive psychology, I think that they believe in this myth is it's like sort of like Pollyanna thinking, right? Like life sucks, just pretend it's great and everything's going to be great. And that is not at all what positive psychology really is about. So would you like to maybe kind of clear it up just a little bit on that, high level, like it's that, it's not about just sort of fake it till you make it belief systems.
No, these are really, really great points, Rebecca. And it is one of those things. I teach an intro class in positive psychology to undergraduates, and a lot of them are coming in thinking that it is at this like, oh, happiness is wonderful, and let's just sort of go around in this bubble. And I help them to recognize through the science,
Mm-hmm.
as well as strategies that have been evidence-based, that things like thinking about what are the three good things that happened to you today,
Mm-hmm.
and what are some of the things you're grateful for, and
Mm-hmm.
being really specific about those things, that they help you to also appreciate when the not so good things are happening, which is the norm. So
Mm-hmm.
there are going to be those struggles in life, and the positive side of things really help you to cope effectively, or have the potential to, when those bad things happen. So I honestly do see them as really related to one another.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of like, let's just focus on happy, 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 let's focus on how we can treat ourselves in a way when things are not going well, such that we are then going to be able to live with meaning and vitality, as opposed to staying stuck in a loop of negativity.
Mm-hmm. This is interesting because I am reminded of an experience that I had with my mom and my younger brother, and we were both like, the adult kids around her at the time. And she's definitely was a big fan of happiness. Like I remember growing up, she would say, like, I just want you to be happy. And in this particular moment, I forget what was going on, but typical, like you're tired or angry or whatever. And we were both in the backseat of the car and in a bad mood and like not talking and, probably just being pains. And just there was a lot of quiet, a lot of silence. And I think that makes my mom feel uncomfortable. But I remember getting out of the car and she goes, well, can't you just pretend to be happy? And I was just like, no, because people aren't happy all the time. And it's okay. It's okay to be in a bad mood. And negative emotions are good because they tell you something's wrong. And instead of trying to fix the negative problem, you can be aware when there's something negative and also choose, well, is there an optimistic view I could take? It's okay to be here, but what's something I could do for myself that really matters right now? And that actually helps you get from negative to positive.
Indeed.
Yeah. And also what I find interesting, and I don't know if you could, if this is, in the research, you could tell me, but in my mom's need to like, sort of like happiness matters, like, almost like chase happiness.
Yes.
She actually struggled with, anxiety and depression a lot too. So it's almost like, if somebody's struggling with mental health issues, could they be sort of chasing happiness as a hope to fight their negative emotions?
Yes, that is indeed possible. And you're likely familiar with some of the principles of acceptance and commitment therapy or ACT.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that really does sort of frame our understanding of, what is the purpose or function? So the chasing happiness, is it more because you're approaching it because that's sort of what you want to be about in terms of what you want to stand for, your values? Or is it more about trying to run away from something? So I think if it is more the latter, that we're trying to avoid those feelings, those thoughts that make us feel bad about ourselves, then that actually is not a very authentic way of experiencing both, sort of the full range of experiences. And that sort of paradoxically can sort of keep us stuck, actually not experiencing sort of like true happiness.
Yeah, that has been my personal experience too. I think from the modeling of like happiness is the thing to chase to realize, I remember at one point in my life, I learned, because I had learned kind of like people pleasing, like make everyone happy. And it actually makes sense. My mom was in the still works in the customer service field, but she was a server most of her life. And she works for a tour company now in Las Vegas doing like Grand Canyon type tour. So her whole job and life identity is serving. And I think that, and for whatever ways, it's like negative emotions are bad and should be avoided, actually became a source of stress and anxiety and problems. And I remember when I first read 1 in 4 people won't like you no matter what you do, I felt so liberated, like, and the message was, so stop obsessing over that person that you're trying to make like you and pay attention to the 3 out of 4 who do like you.
Indeed. And that sounds a lot like some of the principles of compassion-focused therapy, where one of the questions that has come up, is this reflection, how much of your time are you spending in the minds of other people?
Oh,
right?
Oh,
Yes. You're sort of taking up residence in the minds of others, and you're not really fully being able to engage in your own life because you're so worried about the negative evaluations of other people. And at the same time, we can be compassionate about that because almost at a societal level, that has been reinforced, being so worried about how we are experienced by people, how we appear to people, so that we often are reinforced also positively for trying our best to try to sort of fit other people's expectations and needs.
I mean, it's just so true. And the more I had to learn about that there is a benefit to negative emotions and that they had permission to be there, the maladaptive behaviors I had learned with body bashing and emotional eating were able to finally resolve because I wasn't sabotaging myself by not letting myself feel.
Yes. And that also ties into one of the areas that our lab has looked at. It ties in very nicely to, again, sort of ACT's principles of psychological flexibility. And it's actually called body image flexibility, which is sort of a nuanced understanding of positive body image. Again, it's more about, when I'm having these negative thoughts about, I don't like the way I look or something about my appearance, that you're aware of it, you have the mindfulness piece of it, you're holding those thoughts, those sort of the shaming experiences of emotions about maybe my body in a way that's neutral. And it having those thoughts and feelings don't necessarily get in the way of you doing things that matter to you. So that was actually a concept that is very much aligned with ACT, and it was developed by Dr. Emily Sandoz. And our lab has done some work around that, particularly in the context of eating and self-compassion, which ties in as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you know whenabouts that was created?
Okay, let's see. I think Dr. Sandoz focused on that back in 2000, I want to say 9 or 2010. And then a measure has been developed and validated in the last couple of years, the Body Image Acceptance and Action Questionnaire.
Okay.
And so that's one that we have used in some of our research. And that's actually one of the areas that our lab has really helped to add to the conversation about what is positive body image. Is it about just having positive thoughts about yourself? Or can we also think about it more about, or positive emotions about ourselves and our physical appearance? Or can we expand it to include more of the flexibility with which we maybe hold the negative and transform that into valued action?
Oh, as you know, I just love all that. But that's why I was asking, because I was like, oh, I wish I knew that for body kindness when I wrote the book.
Oh, no, goodness.
Because I mean, literally, it's the first time I'm hearing body image flexibility. It makes complete sense. But it also sounds like that's sort of what I was trying to translate from what I was learning about positive psychology and ACT, and saying, well, wait a minute, we can apply this for how we take care of ourselves. And this is the thing we do when we're not dieting, because that was my, you know, how you have research questions. My question was, this is what I want to write about. Okay, body kindness. What do you want me to do if I'm not dieting? What am I supposed to do? And that was the whole, okay, let's figure this out then. Like, what's the structure to give people? So I will, I guess, regretfully admit that I did not know about that, but it's good.
Oh, no.
It's good to know that there is we're all learning, people.
That's right.
And it's good to know that there's a recent measure, because the measures and research are very important. Maybe you want to let listeners know why measures are important to have and use in research.
And one of the big areas that we're trying to better understand from a research standpoint is when we're developing measures, the end product is often what gets most attention, but there's different philosophies on sort of how to even develop a measure. So one of the ways that our lab has tried to sort of adopt is more of a mixed methods approach. So in addition to sort of, generating items, for example, maybe you and your collaborators think about sort of the topic, what would be some items, you might actually also consider going to either other experts or the expertise of the target group that you're hoping to better understand, and you get their perspective. And so we think that sort of measurement really is this opportunity to have a dialogue about the experiences of individuals that you're actually hoping to better understand, and not only sort of focus on sort of the expertise you're coming at it from more maybe of an academic standpoint, which has value. So, measurement really has the opportunity to better understand the experiences of individuals. And then hopefully, again, from my perspective, it can be helpful in helping to predict, for example, folks who might be at higher risk, for example, of having challenges with eating intuitively, eating mindfully, and then that can help us to design, hopefully, interventions.
Yeah, I mean, this is so important for us to know and understand too. Just speaking from the clinician standpoint, I find like we often complain about when we go into the research that we feel like it undervalues the lived experience, and that we need to be able to trust lived experience as much as data. And what it sounds like you're saying is that with your lab's focus is that part of what you use as measure of knowledge and evidence is actually talking to the people who are living the experience.
Exactly. Because that only helps, increase the validity, the relatability of the items on the measure with the folks, again, that you're actually hoping to better understand their experience. Yeah. So it's a win-win.
Yes. That whole art and science piece of it,
yes,
I guess.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk a little bit more specifically about your body image work. I mean, obviously, I have a very strong interest in body image and body image healing. But yeah, I would just love to know, why you do that type of work, if you focus on any, certain areas, maybe some research papers you've put out, but just kind of like let us know a little bit about what you know.
Oh, sure. So one of the areas that our lab has, really been focusing on recently is this whole notion of negative body talk. Again, the broader culture is one that seems to be amplifying just body shaming. And, what we're trying to better understand is how negative body talk is related to just the broader sort of anti-weight and anti-fat attitudes that are really very pervasive. And some may argue are sort of in reaction to this notion of the quote unquote obesity epidemic. And so, what we've actually learned in some of our research with college women in particular is that, young women who already sort of have bought into sort of negative evaluations of individuals of size, higher weight individuals, dislike, fear of quote unquote becoming a person of size, that relationship to the likelihood that you're going to be chatting about how much you dislike your own body with your peers is a pretty significant one. So if you hold anti-fat attitudes, it's also likely you're engaging in that sort of body shaming, self-disparaging, quote unquote, fat talk with your peers. And what we found is that what links those together is body shame. So, the relationship between holding those negative attitudes about individuals of size relate to fat talk because of your experiences of body shame. So the research is cross-sectional, so we can't necessarily make causal attributions, but it helps us to think a little bit more about sort of the relationships among all these variables. And related to that, we also found out, hey, if I actually do engage in more self-compassionate way of coping in general, then guess what? Those relationships tend to be smaller. So self-compassion can kind of buffer the impact of holding anti-fat attitudes on fat talk through the experience of body shame. So self-compassion really, has the potential to be able to unhook some of these, really nasty processes.
So let me ask it like this. Would it be possible to look at it as if you did some work on your own body image and how you assess yourself, that might put you in a better position to project less weight bias as an individual on somebody else, and lower or fewer, hopefully no anti-fat attitudes? Because I'm thinking of how weight bias, is experienced and then internalized, but then also the systemic issues of weight stigma, right? So if we're trying to address the systemic issues of weight stigma, we also know like healthcare providers have weight bias. Dietitians have weight bias. People's own family members have weight bias. And so is it possible that if a person works on healing their own body image and relationship with themselves, that they might engage in less anti-fat talk about themselves and others, and then therefore have fewer anti-fat attitudes, which would be a way, I think, to reduce weight bias and also reduce weight stigma?
It is definitely possible. I think that we're not quite there with necessarily that specific research question, but the foundation is certainly there. We know from some recent research that looked at self-compassion, sort of body gratitude writing exercises, they actually were able to help reduce internalized weight bias in individuals. I think it was actually both men and women. So again, I think this notion of appreciating the body, what it can do, and again, that's sort of another lens of positive body image, is sort of body functionality, really can help unhook some of these negative processes, whether they be body shame or, for example, internalized weight bias. And then again, that question is how does that then contribute to the broader society and really tackling more systemic issues?
Yeah. And I've had several conversations about realizations that the systemic issues are long-term strategies that will take a really long time to address. And that doesn't mean give up and ignore, but it just means that while we acknowledge that and while we work on those systemic issues, what are things that we have more of a control over that we could do? And I think your body gratitude is a great example that it's something that anyone of any size could do. And while
Mm-hmm.
systemically, a higher weight person who has experienced more weight stigma would have more pain than a lower weight person and would have potentially more difficulty doing that body gratitude because they have the lived experience of culture shaming them, but they
Yes.
could still do the activity, right?
Yes.
And if you do the
Yes.
activity and it makes you feel better, that puts you more resilient, which
Indeed.
then could grow your ability to keep expressing body gratitude and grow even more resilience. And it sucks that you have to do that labor, but again, we can't wait forever for the system to change before we start being good to ourselves.
Exactly. And I think you're raising another really important point in terms of what individuals can do for themselves. And also, what's been so exciting is to sort of see a lot of these role models, whether they be celebrities and others that are really taking a stance of sort of that health at every size.
Mm-hmm.
And that, health really is something that is attainable regardless of your size. And one of the areas that our lab has tried to help from more of the evidence base is a very small study that's currently not published yet, but I will be presenting it next week at the Appearance Matters 8 conference.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did last year was to invite young women who had a BMI of 25 or greater here at UNC Charlotte, engage in a very brief 4-week intervention. And what this intervention included was access to 3 15-minute curvy yoga videos that, again, were led by Curvy Yoga founder, Anna Jelly, who, again, was so amazing to partner with us on this project. And it also included a daily body gratitude journal. So they were asked, each day out of these 28 days, please just jot down a thought about what you're grateful for that your body enabled you to do today. They also were sent a motivational image each day. Mm-hmm. And that image, again, had a lot of sort of body acceptance and or more of a body positive sort of philosophy of yoga. And then lastly, they were asked to wear a motivational wristband. And the wristband is also one that I wear. And it says, yoga is for everybody, no way unnecessary. And what we were so humbled by is that even in this very brief amount of time with this, again, very small pilot study, that the young women who actually did complete the program were able to experience significant gains in positive body image, appreciating their body, appreciating the functionality of their body, and significant declines in internalized body shame. And again, this is just sort of something that we're hoping to build upon. But again, it is one of those things that I was inspired by the work of Anna Jelly and others like Jessamine Stanley, and those who are really out there trying to break a lot of stereotypes about who does and can practice yoga.
It's so important. It inspires me personally every day. And it's one of the top things I do with clients is I help them take charge over their exposure to images and information.
Yes.
So we handle what we're going to unsubscribe to and all that unhelpful stuff. And then who we will follow on Instagram and Facebook, because again, that's something that we have choice over.
Yes.
And representation matters, voices matter. And I think it does help, at least in my lived experience and my experience shared with clients, is that it actually helps us speak more kindly to ourselves, and it helps us feel more compassion toward others, which then we do less othering of people at a higher weight or different color skin or someone with a disability. And so we improve inclusiveness, which I think it's humanity, right? That is our common humanity. So it's important.
It is.
I know that you have a specific focus in your lab to focus on ethnic minority women's experiences of body image. And I would love for you to maybe share anything that you may know from your research, and just, it doesn't hurt to help listeners, understand about the socio-cultural factors that can really impact somebody's well-being and body image. So what could you tell us about that?
Well, indeed. And there's just so many layers and complexities. And, I think also just as an African-American woman, it's very easy for me to sort of look at, again, what are the media images that have been out there? What are, again, some of those maybe mixed messages that some women of diverse groups experience, perhaps in the media and or maybe in their families of origin, about sort of what is the quote unquote acceptable body size. And then again, sort of thrown in the mix again, when, sort of the face of quote unquote obesity is oftentimes a woman of color. And so if we're just looking at the statistics, so there's a lot of opportunities for, unfortunately, shaming of ethnic minority women. And also that type of experience could be, unintentionally, sometimes even coming from those who are close to them. So there's a lot to navigate in terms of, okay, so is it Beyonce? Is that the ideal? Or am I supposed to sort of be looking more like, the former First Lady, Michelle Obama's arm? So again, there's all these things about, I think there used to be sort of this idea that certain women of color are immune, for example, to body dissatisfaction. And, what we're learning is that that's not the case. Yet some of the data does suggest that, perhaps for some women of color, there might be maybe less motivation to be willing to talk about it because of that whole notion of, okay, this is something that's not like frivolous, but like I've got more important things to do than to sort of focus on my, what my body looks like. I've got, people need me to be there for them for all of these reasons. And so a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, maybe I don't like the way my stomach looks, but that's not something I need to focus on for too much.
Right.
So there's a lot of really interesting layers there and a lot of different messages that I think certain, women from diverse groups sort of experience in this whole notion of, do I lose weight? Because, my BMI falls into this category. Yet, I might be getting messages saying, well, if you lose too much weight, then you're going to be looking like a white person. And, so it really can, for lack of a better word, weigh on many women.
Wow, that's really interesting to hear about. And I certainly have heard before, first of all, I've heard white people say, oh, it's easy for women of color because they're expected to be curvy and higher weight and everything like that. And then you make the assumption that they don't struggle, and that it's absolutely false. So I'm glad that you're doing work and research in that area, because we do need, if we're going to heal, we need to have the information that helps us heal.
Indeed.
What about the work that you do for women in pregnancy and postpartum and all that?
Oh, yes. So it's amazing. I've been having a blast here at UNC Charlotte. I can't believe this is the end of my 11th year. And so as I think I mentioned at the very beginning of our chat, is that I've gone through a lot of sort of transformation, sort of in terms of professionally and my identity, and how I have sort of viewed, how to best contribute to individuals' well-being. So when I first started here, I was all about obesity, honestly. Again, it was all about health disparities, obesity. Let's help, women of color because they tend to have higher rates of obesity, trying to be really sensitive to all of those socio-cultural factors that can affect certain groups' experiences of increased risk of weight gain. So not just thinking about it in a bubble. But then, I took a step back, and as the years were going by, I was learning more about other isms. So I was pretty familiar with the racism and the sexism, but then weightism, I think was a little bit newer. And so after doing some reading based on authors that were non-psychologists, as well as looking at more of the research, looking at, weight bias, sort of coupled with other types of bias that individuals could experience, it really made me realize that, the weight bias is a really big part of the puzzle. And so over the years, I've sort of, shifted from being quote unquote an obesity researcher to really being more of a positive body image and health at every size researcher.
Cool.
And with that, our lab has tended to focus on that developmental stage of college. Yet now, and I'm sure a large part of it has to do with, myself having, become a mom in the last almost 8 years now. Our son is almost 8. And also just being more aware of a lot of the cultural messages that are out there about women sort of needing to not gain too much weight during pregnancy, then the push to quote unquote bounce back so quickly after pregnancy that again, could be coming from well-meaning healthcare providers, family members, as well as our wonderful also celebrity figures at times, really sort of combined to, motivate my lab to now shift into expanding our focus to pregnancy and the postpartum. Mm-hmm. And, one of the ways we're doing that is through this awesome collaboration with you and other colleagues and students, where we are going to be looking at, how can we take the wisdom and the evidence-based sort of philosophy of body kindness mm-hmm. and be able to tailor that even more to the experiences of women during pregnancy and the postpartum. So that really is a very big focus right now in our lab.
Yay! So I don't remember the exact timeline, but I want to say it was somewhere in the fall or toward the end of the year last year when I first heard from you, and just like, and it was one of the happiest emails I've ever gotten. I was like, Aww. What? Really? Because it was an introduction and sharing some of your research and saying like, yeah, I want to study body kindness and how, the approach and the philosophy could mm-hmm. help enhance body image in postpartum women. And I remember the first thing I thought was like, just excitement. But then I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense because I was 6 months postpartum when I was writing it.
Oh, yes.
And so I always tell people like I'm writing it for myself first, and whoever else it helps, great.
Yes.
Because it is a challenge. It's like you want to focus, and then you want to have a broad appeal. And
that's right.
It certainly is. I do have one male story from Bernie in the book, but because of my lived experience as a female, having mostly female clients, it's when you read it, you could really tell that I've got women in mind.
Yes.
And, but in just doing all of, what could help with this problem and that problem, I was exactly going through, what is a typical postpartum woman's experience. So I was, yes. I was super excited, like, yeah, let's get some data behind this. And I was also thinking this is a really good fit just because I know what I was struggling with at the That's time right. with body kindness and how I was using what I knew in positive psychology and in ACT to sort yes. of help people experience the full range of emotions and also find and cultivate and connect to this inner caregiver, which yes. interestingly, right, we have a new baby and we're learning to care for someone else. And so we know we have it in us to care for ourselves, but we can somehow lose our way through chronic dieting and all those things. So I think it took a while to kind of get stuff together, but we're like, we've done some great work so far. I don't know what you could share like about the scope of the study or the components or, when we could talk about the survey, but I'd love for you to just kind of share what we have going on.
Oh, indeed. And so we do have a couple of different pieces to this first phase of the project, mm-hmm. and it all is so exciting. So one part of it involves having women who were sent a copy of your book, mm-hmm. and they were given about a month to just read through it and to think about what their experiences were like, just reading through it and anticipating, hey, if I were going to implement some of these strategies in my life, what would help? What would make it feasible? Mm-hmm. And so we invited those women in to come in for a focus group or interview. And that's been going on over the last month. We have our final focus group tomorrow, again, really excited. Yay. And it's just been such a privilege to sort of hear their stories and, how much they are really, really getting from the book without even yet necessarily implementing a lot of it. Mm-hmm. And I think the process of interacting with other women who've gone through the book and have read through the book have also sort of help them to think about, oh yeah, I didn't think about it from that perspective. That's something else that I can go back to sort of now that I've had a chance to go through it. So that's one part of the project where we're working with women who have read through the book and are giving their feedback on their experiences and things that they feel maybe could be further tailored and or examples that could help sort of further increase the relatability of the material from more of the postpartum woman's experience. But so far, there have been essentially, a lot of positive feedback on just going through the book and being able to sort of recognize this holistic approach to body kindness. Because some were thinking, you know what, I didn't think about being body kind in that way. So that I think has also been neat too, is to realize, wow, there's a whole menu of ways of being kind to my body.
Yeah. Yeah. And at a time when we are lacking sleep, lacking kindness, it's like, it's kind of, I mean, I hope that sort of that hug you didn't know you needed when you were, going through. And even besides becoming a mother first time, so I have two, and they were only 10 months apart, but I got to say that while there were some things, it was great. I knew how to change a diaper quickly in the middle of the night, I guess. But there's still a lot that goes on in the transition from 1 to 2. And I have friends now who are working on number 4. So I've hit my limit for what I could speak to experience-wise after 2. But, I know we were talking about, well, what is even a postpartum period? And that really, once you have a baby, it's kind of, in my view, I feel like it's forever because you're forever changed. And, just from the interesting time, we don't accept culturally that our bodies are meant to change over time. We don't expect culturally that it's okay that if our bodies change after baby and there is no getting your pre-baby body back. And so I think that it's an important time where when life is changing anyway, where hopefully we could help infuse this kindness, this compassion, and this, and this willingness. So this is the new way I'm going to care for myself while I care for others.
Yes.
And certainly in the counseling experience, I see clients who I just had someone return 4 months postpartum who said, oh yeah, and you got to help me with feeding kids and how we talk about bodies around kids, because I want to help my son. And I'm like, absolutely. And we will work on that. And, thank goodness he's only 4 months old right now. We got some time. So for now, let's work on how you talk to yourself and doing body kindness in your life. And that's going to help you. I say you can only take people as far as you have gone, which Evelyn Tribole, one of my mentors, had taught me years ago. And so, to be able to help women get to a place of connection and kindness with themselves, that's only going to help all the other things and people who they care deeply about in their lives as well.
Indeed. And then quickly this second point, which is also so exciting.
Yay!
And is hopefully as your listeners are sort of getting to this point of our chat, is we're also super excited. Again, we're so grateful, Rebecca, to sort of your energy and enthusiasm just backing this project, because you're talking about how cool it was for me to reach out to you. I was like, oh my gosh, she's actually responding. So that for me was such a high. And again, your continued investment and really backing this project has just been amazing. So the second part is where we will be asking those out there who may be currently pregnant or have a child who is 5 or under, if they've read Body Kindness, are currently reading Body Kindness, or would like to start reading Body Kindness, to be able to actually take part in a survey of your experiences with the material as well. So that's a really nice complement to the focus group work that we're doing on a smaller scale here at UNC Charlotte. And anything else you'd like to add, Rebecca?
Yeah. Well, what I would like to add is that we need a lot of respondents. So if you're listening and you yourself don't meet the criteria, which is up to 5 years postpartum, any number of children, and they need to be in the U.S. That's correct. Is that one of the criteria? Okay. So in the U.S., up to 5 years postpartum. If that's not you yourself, do you know anybody? And you're going to give them this link. It's bodykindnessbook.com/research. That's bodykindnessbook.com/research. And that's like the jumping off page. Anywhere you could share that link with any friend, chat group, email, whatever, church. Spread the word far and wide, because that link will tell everyone the information that they need to hear. So it talks a little bit about the research. If someone has already read the book, there's a link. You can go right to the survey. They can have the book by them while they complete the survey, right? Like they
Indeed,
could refer.
That actually is advised.
Okay. So if that's where you're at, that's all you would need to do. And you're going to get a special bonus at the end, which I'll talk about in a second. But if you haven't read and are interested in reading, we have a limited number, but it's a pretty decently high limited number of ebooks available for free. And so on that bodykindnessbook.com/research page, when you go there, right below where it talks about the study, it will say, would you like a free ebook? And basically there's a link that you click. There's a special code. You'll copy and paste that. I step you through all the instructions, but we have there's like a third party service that's through my publisher that distributes the electronic copy. So that's why you have to go to another site. You provide your name and email address, which is needed because that's how it links this is the book that you get. But you enter in the code, you'll see it shows up free. You get an email. Great, here's your free book. There's a free app that you download on your smart device to read it, and you read it at your leisure. And the hope is that you'll read the book and then return to the bodykindnessbook.com/research page to complete the survey when you're ready. But as you heard earlier, folks got about a month to read. And I would say folks, you could probably, read it in a week or two, but we know being a busy, and we're including pregnancy too.
Yes.
So it's a great time. You could be pregnant and you could be planning for the baby and just read. But, we probably have about a month and the survey would still be up for them to complete, but survey is not going to be up forever. I think that's what I want to communicate out. So, if you're listening, you can help us in two ways. If you meet the criteria, be in the survey and you're into the study. We would love to have you. And you could refer to your print copy. You can get the free ebook, read it, and just self-select, I want to help out this research. That would be amazing. If you know somebody, just pass it on to them. Hey, there's this study, say what you want about me, the book, the podcast, whatever, that's great. But we just want you to do what you can to spread the word so that somebody else may elect to read the book and provide the feedback that we're looking for. And yeah, we would both just be so grateful for that commitment. And hopefully you find benefit out of reading the book. You find benefit out of sharing your feedback. And then as a thank you, when you complete the survey, literally after you hit send and you've been told your survey's completed, you will get on the screen some words of thanks with a link that goes to a very special super secret link that you can only get if you complete the survey. But that is to a absolutely free body kindness after baby training that I created. And so it's a 20-minute video. Plus, I think there's 5 downloadable resources that are all tailored to postpartum and how you would practice body kindness. So there's stuff on loving kindness meditation. I have stuff on food and movement and sleep where, that's based off my experience, based on my experience in working with clients. And they're tools that are designed to help you reflect and set your own goals. So all of that is free and it will be available to you to use as another thank you for completing the survey and for participating in our research study.
Yes, it's so exciting. Again, thank you so much, Rebecca.
I'm super excited. I mean, like I said, it wasn't like, oh, I bet you as I'm writing this book, one day it's going to be in research and postpartum. Like I never dreamed that. So I'm super excited about it. But like I said, it is so complimentary. I mean, the fact of the mindset of when I was in and I was the words that, my husband literally said, right as if you were speaking to a client who had a 6-month-old baby. And I would be like, okay, that's good advice. Because of course I'd be in tears and nursing and crying and everything sucks. And my poor husband would come home and ooh, what kind of partner am I going to get today? And so he had me going through it. And it was, I thought I made peace with myself. I really did. My inner critic went nuts on fire. Judgment. I wasn't momming right. I wasn't being a dietitian right. I wasn't exercising right. I wasn't losing the baby weight fast enough. You were going to lose all your counseling clients. Who do you think you are? I mean, it was just on fire. And so when I was writing Body Kindness, I wanted to make it appealing to all women who, felt hurt by body image and who felt stuck in chronic dieting. I started dieting when I was 9, so I've got lots of experience in that. But it did happen to be written at the time where I needed to grow my own self-compassion. I need to grow my own sense of what my new versions of self-care and well-being looked like. So I'm just so happy we found each other and that you want to study this. And just, I can't stress enough how important it is to collect data. And, especially as we look at other research about the intergenerational of parent encouragement to diet, that's been new research that's come out that's basically said that dieting can pass down 3 generations. So a parent today, if you're encouraging your child to diet, they will be encouraging their child to diet. And so it's just, we look at diet culture and we look at, if we desperately want to break free, we have to change the game, and we have to start with these actionable things that we can do ourselves within our financial means, within our time means. I know we've talked about that in some of the planning. Like we want to hear from everyone. We want this work and these outcomes to be intersectional, right? Because as we move forward in more research, we want to provide material and content and programming that anyone can do at any ability level, any income level, any status of mental health, because we could start somewhere and learn and grow from there.
Well said.
So I thought that what we would do in these last few minutes is just kind of share. I did a brief survey with some of my Body Kindness insiders. This was, we didn't kind of talk about this study per se. That's going to be news when this podcast launches. But I just asked a few to share, especially for anyone that was 0 to 2 years postpartum, about their worries. Mm-hmm. And so I was just going to share a few of those. And one says, I have a 2.5-year-old and an 8-month-old. So I've been pregnant and are nursing for the past 3+ years. Nursing makes me so super hungry. It's nearly impossible to lose any pregnancy weight. I will say that was also, every experience is different, but I was told, oh, you're nursing, you're going to drop that pregnancy weight. That could not have been more false. And first of all, I was like, why are you saying that's the most important thing that should happen to me right now when my body's trying to heal? And like, I'm the resilient one, right? So it's like, I had enough knowledge to be like, hey, that should not be what you're talking about. But then it's still infused in my mind. So when my body wasn't responding that way, it actually caused hurt and pain and suffering, because then I thought something really was wrong. And I actually did get into like, maybe I don't eat the pasta tonight. And I got out of it real fast, but it caused a lot of pain in those moments of vulnerability.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Getting hooked.
I love ACT. Don't you just love ACT?
Yes.
Don't take the bait. Don't take the bait. And even with the client today, we're just talking about not being able to control your thoughts. And I was like, look, if I told you I had $1 million in this box, you just can't think of the Cookie Monster. And she just starts laughing. And I was like, see, you can't. And I was like, not even for $1 million. But just this idea that when you realize that it's not about controlling your thoughts and making those thoughts go away, they have permission to exist, but you have the power to stop their control over your life. I mean, it's just so freeing.
It is.
Yeah. So anyway, this reader goes into, I gain, quote, the normal amounts of weight with each pregnancy, but I can't seem to lose it. Between the weight, these nursing boobs, getting dressed in the morning, I'm dreading that. It's hard not to be envious of other women and children who seem to bounce right back and culture looks at us like that. I know you've mentioned celebrities a couple of times. I know we've been talking a lot about Serena Williams, and she's a beacon of hope for us, who is talking about the 4th trimester and the need to be caring and kind to ourselves in a way that clearly our culture doesn't want us to be.
And I think, again, what makes her sort of testimony so powerful is the image that she has, developed as this, obviously, somebody who's so mentally tough and, so physically also strong. For her to be able to acknowledge this part of her humanity, it's just so powerful.
It's so important. And I'm sharing her stuff as frequently as I can, because sometimes that's exactly what we need, is an example of somebody who is doing it in the line of where we would like to go. And then we could start to follow their path. So she talks about, this reader talks about, it's hard not to desire weight loss, but it's also hard to find time for self-care and healthy habits while working full-time and having 2 kids in diapers. It's hard to know where to start with it all and where to find the time. And that exemplifies, I mean, everything in there is 100% true. And I think that a lot of the problem with it too is that we have this vision of wellness that is really upheld by whiteness, right? It's a thin white woman drinking a green superfood smoothie. This is what we're supposed to achieve. And we should be devoting hours of time and all the money we can muster toward this version of wellness. And really what the problem in this case is what we look at as wellness. And we need to start calling that sick and sickness. And we need to actually reframe wellness for what's workable for ourselves.
Yes.
So a 5-minute dance party, even if it is a Barney song,
yes,
learn to like it. Or at least my kids are now onto the Descendants soundtrack, so I get something, and Kids Bop. But there are some good children's movies that have really good songs. The songs from Sing, but even that 5 minutes, your 8-month-old could be sitting there. The 2.5-year-old might get up and boogie with you, but that 5 minutes of a dance, that is movement, and that is joyful movement, and that is contributing to your wellness and your well-being in the short term for a positive emotion, connecting with your child, but also it's a meaningful action. I move my body today in a meaningful way that worked for me, and that's enough. What can I do tomorrow? And that's how you create a habit.
Yes. Indeed. And it's really making it more about being okay with what you want in the context of what you value in those moments, for example, in your relationships with your child or children or partner. That again, it doesn't have to be what the media sort of put out there as this quote unquote ideal or idealized version of what, like you're saying, sickness, is versus, health, well-being, and having that flexible approach.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there's some more comments. One is really short and sad, but I think it's why we're doing the work we're doing. So she says, my body issues started after I gave birth and have continued for 8 years since. So, I'm hoping that we can see it postpartum to be a period of resilience. So we could be grateful for what like you said, my body helped produce this human being, my body is helping, if you're nursing, my body's helping to nourish, but just any sort of gratitude in that time. But it also can be a time where it's where the body image issues really take hold.
And I think that also has come up in some cases with some of the women we've been talking to in the focus groups and interviews, is just that diversity of experience. Some have said, the struggle with body image has been almost lifelong. And then others, it was more recent to the postpartum period. So I think what's been helpful is for the women to sort of also experience that those journeys, there's similarities and there's differences. And that, again, sort of considering those ways that, body kindness can sort of help you regardless of sort of where your journey has started and as you move forward.
Yeah. So I'll read a couple more so we can get the gist of what some of the sentiment is. And hopefully if any listeners can relate to any of these comments, it will help you click that link and participate in the study, because these are all things that we want to help provide some answers and solutions here. So another one said, I had different body image issues after 9 months of, she says HG, so I'm assuming that's hyperemesis. So that's the vomiting. Yes. I was the smallest size I've ever been in my adult life. I'd never been thinner than right after I given birth. But of course, I was so excited to eat again, so it didn't last. So what I'm hearing then is just the cultural ideals of thinness. It's like, we shouldn't be so happy that we had a horrible illness throughout our pregnancy and couldn't keep food down. And yet that somehow creates happiness in our appearance. But then once you're excited to eat again, but then your low weight is not going to stay because that wasn't her natural weight. And just kind of shows that twist of being able to eat is a very good thing for survival. And we shouldn't have to have our appearance so tightly wound and like food control to be good. Let me see. So here's one who's currently pregnant. I'm 34 weeks pregnant with my second, and I'm new to this body kindness idea. Totally get it. a lot of people are new.
Yes, she's not alone.
I like the idea of not focusing on calories and other things. I'm feeling better about the weight gain. What I'm wondering is how to have healthy body kindness attitude about losing the weight and getting closer to my set point after baby comes, with 2 little boys, it's important for me to be fit, but I don't want to get too caught up in weight loss and everything. So yeah, I think that, it's interesting her being pregnant with her second because she already has some experience, but I align with in my first pregnancy, that uncertainty of this is a time in my life where I'm supposed to be gaining weight, and with my dieting, chronic dieting history and my body image issues in the past, this is also challenging for me. I actually opted for, I had the privilege of choosing a physician and finding a physician who was a higher weight female who was more from a health at every size perspective. And I did agree to get weighed, but I got on the scale backwards. Yes. And I just made sure I could see her for my appointments. I made sure everyone knew that I was going to get on the scale, but that I was going to stand backwards and I didn't want to see it. And for that, it just helped me let them do what they needed to do.
Yes.
And it just helped me say, look, you have permission to trust your body and nourish your body according to your appetite, according to your needs, according to what you know about pregnancy nutrition. You also have not permission to not be the one who needs to know anything about the number. That's the doctor's job. And it was really helpful to me in the first pregnancy to do that.
It's so neat.
Yeah. And I think, basically what her question is like, and again, it's, I see a lot of fat phobia in this. It's this uncertainty of like, I don't want my body to change after baby.
Yes.
And I think, again, what is good about body kindness and postpartum is it's grounded in acceptance. And that if we can practice, gratitude for our bodies and what they do for us, and at the same time, evolve into what our new life is like and reframe wellness and what we do to take care of ourselves, that hopefully with this new identity, of how the puzzle pieces fit together, that we spend less time like, quote, working on our appearance and more time creating a better life and a positive well-being. And our health can be part of that, but it's not just physical, it's mental health too.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, we have had such an interesting conversation today, and I got a lot more survey responses and things like that. But that, I think that's kind of a good capture of what people are saying, is bothering them, and yes, acknowledging that it can be a challenging time in life, and but it can also be an opportunity for important healing. So, once again, for listeners, we are actively in research mode right now, and the sooner the better we can get that data. So the best thing that you could do is go to bodykindnessbook.com/research. So you have that link, share far and wide. If you qualify, please complete the survey. Would love it if you took advantage of that free electronic copy, flip through it, use it to answer the survey, and know that your effort is highly, highly valued and important and will be put to very good use as we work to help make information and educational programs accessible to all women who need it.
Yes. Thank you also to those who also have shared their stories as part of the testimonies as well. That's so valuable.
So important. So before we wrap up today, Jennifer, would you like to share how folks can get in touch with you?
Sure.
Online on the interwebs?
Sure. So for those of you who might be more interested in the work that our lab has done, you can feel free to look us up on researchgate.net, my main profile, Jennifer Webb, or the Mind Batch Lab. If you pop in either of those, that'll take you right to some of our work.
That's wonderful. And I'll be sure to include the link to that in the show notes, as well as the link to the research study. And we both recommend you go to the research study and then follow Jennifer's amazing work at the ResearchGate website. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It really has been fun and a privilege.
And that's a wrap on today's show. Let's continue the conversation on Facebook. Just search Body Kindness Podcast and click to join. And if you can contribute to the production costs for the 2018 podcast season, visit gofundme.com/bodykindness. We love ratings and reviews. Please do that. And don't forget to let your friends know that Body Kindness is one of your can't miss podcasts. If you have questions, comments, or guest recommendations, shoot me an email, Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com.